earthquake. A man who threatened to throw his ex down a well has been jailed for 24 years. 56-year-old Douglas Clifton Brown was convicted of attempted murder after driving
Reviving communities.
The views expressed in the program do not necessarily represent private management.
Hello, good evening. This is Revive FM 94.0. We're on a 20th session, and we're
in our 22nd year.
Is it 22nd year?
22 years, mate.
And yeah, just keep it tuned in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment on YouTube page Revive FM UK, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and under the name. My name is Sant, and
come again,
Sant, and the people we have today is from your side.
Oh, I'm Stan.
Stan.
Yes. Stan.
And our guest, Sukhdev. And our secretary, Pauline. Right. Okay. What we're going to do? We're going to start with what we're going to do. We're going to try to do a little bit of sort of. We're going to go for a revision. We're going to go back, see what's happened from our first show, see where things have gone.
Hold on. You know we've been going for 22 years now. Couldn't we get Chaz and Dave to do a song?
But that's the Friends of Queen's Market bit.
Are they still alive?
I have no idea. All right. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to see how things work. We're going to go back and forth, see how it was in the beginning, see year on how things have changed. Whether we've got wiser to the system, there will be a change in the system. Well, whether the system can be nudged or pushed or whatever in the direction that hopefully it works for communities, especially grassroots communities. So what we're going to do first thing, as we normally do, we're going to go through updates. So Pauline, could you take us through some of the updates, please?
Yes, indeed. Now the market lighting, this is a big one because for over a year. The market was given a year ago, the market was given new lighting, which made the market darker than before.
Yeah.
The council spent, we don't know how much, on a consultant's report, which argued that the market was lighter than before, and there was something wrong with all our eyesight.
Yeah.
But the traders and Friends of Queen's Market really persisted, and we've got to the point now where they are trialling new lighting. And amazingly, they are consulting the traders, putting different sets of lighting in and asking them, what do they think? Do they like them? So this is a
Before we move on, could we say that's a success point? Could we say that's an achievement we've done over a year? Just that little bit of two-way communication between the market management.
Come on, it's taken a year. The lighting's not sorted yet.
But there wasn't that communication before then. So we've got somewhere.
Yes, it's even better. It's not going through anybody because the lighting isn't being done by the market management. It's being done by a different department. Can't remember which.
Yeah.
But the people who are doing it are actually communicating directly with the traders. And yes. This is a new departure, actually, because previously, when work was done in the market, you had to go through the market management.
Yeah.
And then, whatever you said got lost in realms above. So this
Well, you're saying it didn't work?
This really is an achievement. So, but we still haven't got lighting, improved lighting yet. It's Some of the lighting they've seen is a fair bit better, though. So once it's installed...
Pauline, do you think we're making too much of this lighting issue?
you have to make much of every single issue to get anything done.
No, mate, it was dark with these new lights. You couldn't see anything. The traders bought their own lights in. So they were paying for their lights and they were paying an electric bill.
I think very often this is how you win fights and you get improvements. You take up the little things. You take your sledgehammers to go cracking nuts. That's just my take on it. And this nut looks as if it's going to be cracked, but it's taken an awful lot of sledgehammer.
But it seems the communication has gone from Queen's Market fighting, then it's got the Queen's Market Union riled, and it's not just gone, it's gone to the GLA. We've had the GLA people here, you know, and they sort of must have said something. So
because a third of the money came from the GLA to improve the market.
Well, we don't know where the money's gone. We don't know what all we're concerned about is the lighting that we need communication. Which direction it's going to come from? Well, we need communication. We need a two-way dialogue so to get something done. So,
it's a bit sad though. You'd think it was common sense that the traders, not the public, see their mangoes, see their goods.
Well, you're talking about an institutionalized
the man
institution.
sells jewelry. He wants his.
Let's not get carried away. These are trials.
They are trials.
Let's see if it will take another 5 years before we get through that.
But the communication part started though, so, and that's the main thing, and that's what I'm concerned about.
I think kind of small kind of baby steps.
Yeah,
are probably considered an achievement. So well
done
to the campaign.
I think we've got to give the management and I don't know who, but the council.
Overall, there's far
do you know, I was trying to be a little bit reserved. I was trying to give a positive, but yeah, council. But yeah, I'm trying to give a positive note that something has happened, right, and that's important, for the campaign and for for future dialogue. And you've got to start somewhere. So we know that they're listening. We know that something's happening. Not only that, they were talking to the market management, but also to other peoples like the Matilde, the regen lady, and other people as well. So they came on board. We didn't know that they were there. So they came on board. So it's now starting to.
In fairness, son, ages ago, the mayor even came to look at how bad the lighting was.
Did.
Yeah, so maybe.
But that's the thing. See, that's the thing.
The pressure has worked.
Hey, so and that's what I'm trying to get at. So at least we've got somewhere on that side of it. We have to sort of look at it as a positive and as a tick, really, for community grassroots activities and communication.
And the traders.
And the traders. Yeah, and I think all the traders stood up quite well. So really, all good thumbs up to them. Okay.
So
cannabis.
Can I just ask, at this rate, and all the issues that you've been talking about in 20 weeks, over 20 shows and 40 weeks, will it take this long for each episode to be dealt with in this fashion?
Oh my!
Because we could be looking at another 10 years.
It's possible. It's possible. It's not a joke.
That could be true, but what it was, I was trying not to say it that way. I'm trying to spin a positive note on the 20th.
Oh, that was being positive.
Oh, good grief. I know I'm in for a show tonight.
One of our members says Friends of Queen's Market will live forever, and I think arguably we'll have to. But anyway, the cannabis. Yes. Well, as you know, at the front of the market, the cannabis.
Sorry, before we say to the audience out there, we've got pictures. We are going to try to blow them up and put them in the backdrop so that you know what we're talking about when we're talking about cannabis.
Yeah. That's the stalls at the front of the market.
Yeah, and they took, I think it was prefab steelwork.
And
now it's done in a
wooden frame,
ecological wooden frame. So, but we will take pictures. It's just that we've got to figure out how the technology works to be able to get it out to you guys so you can see it and follow us and keep up with it. But that will be on the way.
Yeah, I mean, you could, I think Sans explained it very well. You could summarize it as the entry to the market.
Yeah, that's even better.
Two covered stalls on either side, and there's going to be signage and the rest of it. So it'll be a big entry to the market. And
but the thing is, sorry, Polly, where you've highlighted is to the entrance of the market. It's not a small section of it. it's actually what, the third of it, three quarters of it?
The front.
The whole of the front of the market
the whole
on
of
Green
the front.
Street. Yeah.
So when you've got a hoarding, so this hoarding's been up for ages.
Yeah.
And you know,
Months.
and people are just moaning, and that hoarding, it just blocks a lot of natural lighting going in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, people think it's closed.
Makes it even darker.
And so it's just that rundown sort of like look about the place. So sorry, carry on.
No, that's right. So anyway, this work is going on. Now, what happened was, just before Eid, that was last weekend, newer people will know that it was the Eid celebration. The manager, the traders were told that the big crane's going to come into the market to work on the cannabis, and all the front of the market will be closed. Now, this is just before Christmas, last minute shopping. The market is always heaving before Eid, before Diwali, before Christmas, before Easter. And the traders were furious, and stiff words were said, unrepeatable words were said, very firm.
To the management.
To all the parties involved, not just the management.
So they weren't just rumours.
We'll leave what was said. But anyway, the result was they listened to the traders, they listened to their representative, and the work started on a very good day, actually, the Monday of this week, when nobody goes out shopping because, you know, it's the Eid holiday, and and they've started work, and there are people actually working. I went past the market on Monday, you know, and people were working there, and on Tuesday there's a little crowd, of course, as there usually is when guys are doing work, you know, admiring them.
So we have a management that should know all this about Eid, about everything else, and yet they still can't plan a simple task.
Yeah, it wasn't the management, that one. You see, this is the council, the other departments of the council. I think it was the regeneration that were at fault there, actually. But the point is that the situation was saved. So it was saved.
And it was on the busiest time of the trading as well.
And I would say about the council, the rod starts at the top. Everyone should be aware.
God, I'm so surprised, Polly. You've never been that.
That was a joke, wasn't it, Pauline?
Anti-council sort of thing.
That was a joke.
Right. Okay.
Well, fish is not from the head downwards. That's what I meant.
Is there anything else you want to add? Is there any advertising?
That's why we always put the head off first.
Is there any advertising you want to put in there quickly about fruit and veg? Let's get it out of the way.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to tell you, our lovely readers, try and tell you every show about some bargain I've seen in the market, because that's what it's all about. Tuesday, there were Dominican mangoes. They were great too, but they were £5 a box. Now, I know some people are a bit wary of Dominican ones because they're not the India and Pakistan that we know and love.
Not Asian mangoes.
But these were actually, I'm told, grown from a cultivar from India, and they are good. Now, grade 2, you know, my books of 6. One was a little bit iffy, but the others are lovely. So that's £5 a box.
Well, in India, normally iffy ones, they squeeze and make juice out of them. So there's always got a use for it.
That's what I'll do. Yes.
Well, you should have done this, Pauline. You should have just brought them in and just displayed them. Anyway, that's for next time.
Next time.
So, markets in total. What value do markets have?
I mean, what it appears to be is that it's put you lot together. So, in one respect, there is some kind of benefit for it, and economically, but also kind of where they're situated and the position they have in the kind of the general kind of environment. The place has a great bearing on how the environment is actually functioning, how people meet. These become kind of, I think in one of your programs you used third space.
Yeah.
You know, I call these kind of spaces where it's not purely transactional, but it's also social.
Yeah.
And these places have kind of great bearing. I mean, I was born and raised in Forest Gate. I was schooled in Forest Gate. and I hated to go. I must say that I hated to go to Queen's Market because it was a case of you were there to carry the bags.
I know.
And then
I
listen
know the
to your mother
experience.
speaking to
I
kind
know
of
the
people,
experience.
and then you're promptly ignored for the next kind of 20 minutes till the next person comes along. My experience at kind of Queen's Market was, can we go now?
That is so true. My mum did the same to me. I was so glad when they put wheels on trolleys because I was carrying 4 bags and I would just virtually cry all the way home.
It was only later, a lot later, when I was a lot older, till I realised how much joy that gave turning up on to the market and meeting people, meeting old friends, catching up with them. How much it meant to her, and she would recount some of them. As soon as my dad got a car and he could drive there, we didn't have to go.
Yeah, I know.
Right? I mean, that was kind of a relief.
It's such similar experiences. It's crazy.
And it was such a relief. But then I used to listen to my mother recounting kind of stories, who she'd met, how people were getting on, what was going on. And I actually realised it was the equivalent of having a newspaper.
They should. My mum used to do meet up other people because of language issue, right? They meet up, and plus they might probably from the same village, same sort of. They'd meet up, and they would always block the pavement.
Yeah.
People couldn't have to walk around and everything. And I was just telling my mum, come to the side, sit down. But they would occupy space. So to me, that is what it's all about. They took space, which meant they felt relaxed in it, comfortable, and they owned it. And that was important.
Coming back to your kind of question, apart from the economic value, there's a hell of a lot of other value
absolutely
that goes on into this market. And it's something that I think kind of new residents should be proud of and seeking to defend rather than having to defend its existence.
Yeah. Just hold that thought. We're going to come back to that. But Paulie, I want to. We've had all these issues with the market. We for a whole year we've had this turmoil of people not listening, and we're arguing. All this to and fro of everything. GLA, and now what they want to do, right? They want to whack the pitchy, the traders with a 2.5% rate increase. What is that all about? Why now when the cost of living is the way it is? Why now? I mean, is there any way that we could sort of turn that back, or get them to withdraw that? Because they need help now, because they've had so much disruption over the year, right, that, really a lot of people would have just packed up and gone home.
Yeah. Well, the notice to the traders said that if you want to make representations against this, it was signed by the market manager, come and talk to me. But the traders thought it would be better if they made their representations collectively. So they've drawn up a petition which lists all the reasons why their rent shouldn't go up. You see, in theory, it's in line with inflation and it's in line with increased costs to the market. Now, but what you can argue this year, you can argue that there's been exceptional disruption.
There has.
And it's a justification for a market rent freeze. Now, other councils have done that in the past, particularly at the time of COVID and before, when something exceptionally difficult hit the traders. So if ever there was a time to freeze the rent for a year, and then see what
is the shop leases and the pitch rates in any way sort of linked?
No. And I think in a way, I know that people have argued, particularly empire builders in the council, have argued that they should be brought under one management, and I'll be the manager sort of thing. But to be honest, it's easier for us to deal with them separately. They're very different issues. With the leases,
different beasts.
With the leases, you've got all sorts of. Some traders have got sort of protected.
They're all different leases, aren't they? It's not the same lease.
Yes, different leases, and they're complicated arguments. difference there.
What's the oldest lease going there?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oldest running lease. And how much was the
about-
first rate on the lease?
Yeah, I should think about 20 years or so. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, some of the traders were. Do you want me to go into the story? It's a long. It's a bit of a long story. Some of the traders have ended up with Mickey Mouse leases, and this is very much thanks to council craftiness. You know. Yeah.
But on the rents, I think, and rather than ask for a rent freeze, perhaps start with a rebate. I mean, after all, you've had disruption. You've been offered a service that hasn't been there. Say, well, have your 2.5% increase, but what about the money back for the disruption? Perhaps that would focus the mind.
I mean, according to them, they reckon they've lost about 10 to 40% of footfall. I mean, that in reflection to what they lost in earnings, it's got to be quite a lot. Really.
Well, it's look, you've paid for a service, you haven't received it, and since we're being told for the last 40 years that the customer is king, when they're not really.
Hey.
But let's play it at kind of play the rhetoric. Let's have a rebate, and what we'll do is we'll put that rebate to something kind of useful to improve the market.
Excellent, a rebate. Let's put that on the next agenda and chase the council for a rebate for the traders. I think they'd love it, too, Truth.
They have asked for compensation already. That was referred to in their petition email.
Okay, so an email has gone out.
I think
They're doing a petition to the traders.
Petition.
Yeah, well, it was an email. It was an email which all of them signed. You see, it wasn't. It wasn't your kind of "we humbly beg you." It was. It was listing their grievances and their reasons why.
So that's gone out. So
I think it's gone in. To be honest.
Fantastic.
Check that.
Have a check, find out, because at least we know that they've gone in a positive direction. You know, and they're letting the management know. You know, where we stand.
Are there any councillors who are saying there shouldn't be a rent increase because of all the disruption?
Well, do enough councillors know?
I think that's it.
And it's the fact that do they know? And a lot of councillors don't know what the council does. And that
councillors don't know what the council does.
It's a fact. I mean,
you're giving me good ideas. I think Friends of Queen's Market should approach the traders. You know, we've got good relations with them.
Absolutely.
Get a copy of what they've sent off and say, hey, can we forward it to our councillors, or would you like it?
I think.
I mean, when I say our councillors, sadly, the only councillors who've done anything for us so far have been the oppositions. And they've both been good, the Greens and the Independents. They've been very supportive, you know. They've done what they can, you know.
Well, they're supposed to spend a hell of a lot of, they're supposed to be throwing a lot of good growth money at the market. But that'll be a different, I don't know. Have you got an opinion about good growth money, Suk? I mean, sometimes...
Your program's not long enough.
I think he's going to say that.
I mean, the cynic in me says that all this is being kind of used for kind of good publicity. It's good phrases to throw about. Yeah. And when there's a tricky decision, what we'll do is, we'll put it under the banner of good growth. And therefore, it's bound to be good. Like, even if you may not know anything about it, it's got the word good in there. And so, therefore, it must be good. What we're coming down to, in all Pauline's kind of updates are, it's rather like kind of, you know something that you don't know something about. Yeah. It's the kind of communication. For example, how many people did actually write into the council to say what's happening about the market? Yeah. What about the kind of the hoardings? Why are they up there? How long will they be there for? Yeah. Has there been any explanation of why the delay has been there? Often people are prepared to kind of tolerate disruption if they're told kind of not only a timeline, but they're communicated. And they've somehow participated, not in a superficial way, but an understanding that what will come from this is it's been done as quickly as they possibly can do it, and it will enhance the market. What you've had is, even when they've had enhancements, it's a deterioration in the service. And that creates kind of that cycle of cynicism that is very difficult to break. Yeah. And that cynicism becomes kind of contagious.
And it beds itself in.
Yeah.
Contagious is right, because people, if you run something down and you say, well, what should we do? We're going to knock it down or do this, because what it is, you've given them a picture of, that this is where it is, this is how it is. But they're not spending the money in there, not investing the money that they were given to invest into it. If they gave them the alternative, what is the alternative? What is the third option, as somebody kept mentioning to me? Yes. And the third option is improve the market, is give people what they want, give the traders one, give the whole thing a massive uplift and bring people in.
I listened to one of your programs when you talked about the option. That Pauline, you were quite eloquent on the consultations they had in the library. If the council is so confident that the two solutions have overwhelming support, what would it cost anybody to put the third one in and say, well, just enhance the market and leave the fabric of it intact? If they're that confident, there would be no kind of issue here. Perhaps the cynicism isn't as misguided as I was probably alluding to.
Yeah, you're right.
And the consultations often are done in a kind of a superficial kind of way. I know it's a difficult, democracy is kind of difficult, but particularly at the local authority.
But the thing is, they actually, one of the options was that they said they'd improve it. They'd improve the market. But that was never part of the two options, so to speak.
Yeah, well, they've rewritten them. They had 5 options at the beginning.
There were 5,
they got, effectively, the public gave them the answer they didn't like.
Yeah.
Far too many people went for the leave the market alone option.
Yeah.
So they wound those up. Then they had 2 options, but they rephrased them, because one of the options was no housing on the site, but just a library and a community centre, and a general. But now they're both housing, and of course this is our beef, because we know what the proportion of social housing will be, and there probably won't be any social housing.
No.
Folks, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
All right, we're going to have a break.
Break time.
All right, keep tuned in to our Revive FM 94.0. Keep tuned in. We'll come back in a couple of minutes. We're going to have a break and have a cup of tea. Take care now.
Thinking about selling or letting your home? With Maxwell Estates, you don't need to look any further. Well established with over 15 years of experience, Maxwell Estates are specialists in residential sales and lettings. We manage over 200 properties in and around Northwest London, keeping our landlords and tenants updated with all the latest laws and legislations. Based in Edgware, our experienced specialist negotiators always ensure we maximize the full potential of your property. Call us now on 0208 952 0808 for a free no obligation quotation, or visit our website www.maxwellestates.co.uk for further information. Maxwell Estates, the name you can trust.
When you send money to your family for Ramadan, send it with Remitly. Because our great rates and low fees mean that more money makes it to your loved ones. Millions of people trust Remitly to send money to Pakistan, Bangladesh, and many more countries worldwide. Ramadan Kareem from Remitly, wishing you a peaceful time. Download the Remitly app. Remitly UK Limited is authorized and regulated by the FCA.
तकरीबन 60 मिलियन प्राइमरी स्कूल जाने वाले बच्चे इस वक्त स्कूल में दाखिल नहीं हैं। मयारी तालीम की फराहमी से पसमानदा बच्चों को गुर्बत के मुसलसल चक्कर से बचने का मुसावी मौका मिल सकता है। इस रमजान आइए आपके ताउन से इस बात को यकीनी बनाएं कि हर बच्चे को मयारी तालीम हासिल करने का मौका मिलेगा। मिनहाज वेलफेयर फाउंडेशन के जरिए बच्चे की तालीम को स्पॉन्सर करें। बस हमारे मकामी दफ्तर 12 कार रोड, नेल्सन, BB9 7JS पर तशरीफ लाएं। हमें 01282 723 455 पर कॉल करें या हमारी वेबसाइट www.minhajwelfare.org पर देखें। ताज़ा तरीन वीडियोस और अपडेट्स के लिए फेसबुक, इंस्टाग्राम और ट्विटर पर जुड़े रहें।
Minhaj School of Islamic Sciences provides quality.
Taking your bra off at the end of the day feels great.
Hey Sainsbury's, how can I ace iftar after work?
We've got savings on all the staples, like Tahira Kudri dates for breaking your fast, down from £3.50 to £2.50 with Nectar. Plus, grab a 5-kilo bag of East End Chuckiata flour, usually £10.75, now £6.75 with Nectar.
At this rate, I'll invite the neighbours too.
For big savings this Ramadan, ask Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's, good food for all of us.
Nectar required, 18 plus, subject to availability in selected stores and online. Excludes locals, ends 30th of March.
Revive FM
94.0. On the radio.
on your mobile.
And online.
Welcome back, my lovely Newham people. Right, Revive FM 94.0. Keep it tuned in. Let's keep the argument going, keep the discussion going, no matter what it is.
We don't argue, mate. We're just the best.
Well, I want
We're the
arguments.
heart of the East End.
I want arguments. I want discussion. I want debates. I want to get things out in the air. We need to find solutions to all this because I believe that the council is just not doing that. You know, we've got.
What, you're saying they don't believe in democracy?
Don't start me on the democracy.
Go on, start.
Don't start me on the democracy because democracy.
I'm telling you, mate, they want all of us involved in running the council. They want to hear from us.
Do they?
They want to know our views.
Is that part of the so-called participatory democracy that's been handed out to us? Right. So, well, that's a good lead.
You get a cup of tea and a sandwich as well.
That's a good lead-in to consultation. So, we've talked about consultation many times, and people think I'm just making a big thing of it. But I'm quite passionate about consultation because that is part of this so-called clumped together business they've come up, this state, this institution called democracy, right? This participatory. That's what they said in their literature. We're going to give you this participatory democracy. I don't know what that means because we've not participated in anything. I went to a council meeting and it is People's Forum. And yet the council was dictating to us what they said they think they've done. And when a person tried to put a question forward, and they said, "Oh, we will do it when we're ready." And I said to the person, I said, "Look, this is not a people's forum. This is a council forum. We are supposed to tell you, right, and put you in the position where you need to be answering questions, right, and you need to have all the information there." But you are failing this. So what you've done, you've taken this forum business, this people's forum, and you've taken it over. You've absorbed it because you're taking that away from us. So we don't have a people's forum. You've took it on. Like everything that you do, you take these sound bites and you adapt it for yourself, which is what these so-called institutions do. Now, I want to know, how do we move forward from there? How do we get, whether it's national institutions or local institutions, to start really applying consultations? Because we are the biggest consumer of consultation. Newham is.
Consultation is a two-way thing, right? And often many ways.
Really?
Okay. First of all, the cynicism, and it is kind of grounded in kind of cynicism.
And I'm big in that.
But often these kind of relationships are often like a parent and child, right? Where you're being spoken to and spoken at, rather than your views are not only kind of heard. You might get the speaking part, an occasional speaking part, but you don't know where in the ether it kind of disappears. Obviously, kind of, democracy and participation is kind of difficult, but much of
I don't want that speaking part on a permission basis.
Okay, yeah, but you don't want to. You want a speaking part, but you want a speaking part where you feel that you're genuinely kind of participating, right? And most people often want that. They'll often tolerate a poor decision or a decision that they don't necessarily like if they be part of the consultation. Often what happens is that people are indifferent about things until they lose the thing that they thought was going to be there forever. But when we're talking about kind of participation, I'm a member of a trade union, and if we want to go out and strike, 50% of the membership has to vote.
Yes.
Okay. What's the average turnout on a local authority election?
Probably about 25%.
About 30%. Yeah.
Is it 30%?
About 30%. And when we talk about kind of popular democracy, I mean, those who didn't vote are part of that then, aren't they? We don't have kind of participation at that level. And it doesn't, people are not born not to participate. It's happened over kind of time. So, for example, how much of this kind of participation and what your local authority does and what your kind of rights are actually taught from the day you turn up in school? Yet we're telling everybody about this crime or that crime and this dangerous, that dangerous.
Like this and
yes,
like that.
and you must do this and you must do that. And by the time they're done in school, when you want them to participate in the decision making of their community, their local community, their regional community, their national community, what you get is kind of indifference because nobody seems to know where the decisions are made, or very few know about this. How do you kind of turn it? I don't have the answers, and it's not, but as a community, we do have the answers. And what we can't leave it up to is those people in power deciding what crumb of power they're prepared to give you so you can participate. Unless you kind of break that kind of cycle, and also the kind of communication of this, we're going to have constant cynicism and constant a disconnection with our kind of politics. And those kind of politics have kind of profound things. They do manifest themselves in kind of different ways. But
so how do you engage with people who are solely disengaged with the system, the mechanism, because we just can't seem to get a foot on the train on that first step? We just keep getting falling off because they're not allowing us to get on board to be part of the process. How do we do that?
An easier way is let's pick an object, let's pick a cause. Let's take Queen's Market. What would participation actually look like? Let's turn the kind of question back onto the question onto the questioner.
Yes. Well,
yes. I'm a great believer in public meetings.
Yeah.
And this seems to be the one thing the council's fought shy of. They have these forums, but I believe you have to be online and register to be notified of them. Now, as soon as you say go online, put your views in. Mind you, you enter your views online. Nobody knows where your views go when you press the send button. But a lot of people are digitally excluded. And that's a very good interesting point. In any case, a public meeting, you can see other people, you can hear other people. And you can see the way things are going. I mean, you're not out of the woods even if you do call a public. I know it sounds terribly old-fashioned, but I think that's the only way. They did have a drop-in place in the market, but it was totally manipulated. The information they gave was completely opaque. You couldn't make head or tail of it.
That's normal. That's normal.
Our brains could. They were there for about 2 hours figuring it out. But the rest of us couldn't. You should have seen the diagrams. They were weird.
I know.
And then you were invited to write what you thought on a bit of paper, put it in a box, and where did that box
So there's two things on that, what you've just said, Pauline, here. One is kind of throwing sand in your eyes.
Yeah.
You know that the agenda and you're being manipulated. But you no longer have the kind of the voice or the opportunity to raise that or to influence that. If the council, I mean, it doesn't just apply to kind of council, it includes many institutions in our lives. If we're looking for a consultation, and you have nothing to fear from consultation because what the council is proposing has overwhelming support, why don't we say to people, look, fill in a little form, we'll put it into a hat if you're going to be kind of committed to the consultation, which will take this many hours, etc. And these people will kind of lead the agenda. Let's pull them out at random. Let's see what happens. I mean, if there's a problem, there's a fault line in our kind of democracy, and we can't quite figure out what to do next, at least we need to experiment where we get a dissipation of power. And part of the exercise is the dissipation of power. What you have is kind of, every week, every second week, I love your kind of updates. Updates. I love your kind of updates because they have a kind of common theme. We don't exactly know. And it's kind of astonishing that you don't know, and you're the most engaged people on the market. That tells you something about a kind of a fault line.
Yeah.
And I can't say kind of, what the solution is overall, but let's take one thing and one object at a time, and let's see what works.
Yeah.
When things have been broken after 40 years of an experiment that hasn't worked, we're left here saying that we know less when we're supposed to be kind of digitally savvy and all this information thrown at you. What you have is information thrown at you right, with no kind of context, and you're just overwhelmed by it. Right? That's how bureaucracy works.
But we got co-create. It sorts everything out.
Yeah, what's that?
That's the holy grail.
What is it?
That's the holy grail of our council's communications part of it. Where everything is in there. When you get into, but people don't even know how to get into co-create.
Look, one of my favourite books is Alice in Wonderland. Everyone gets surprised, don't they? Right?
Yeah.
Everyone gets surprised. Sometimes you have to reach a kind of a point where democracy actually means that you have to take vested interest and power on.
I agree, you've got to take vested interest, but to be vested interest into any processes of power sharing, it means that they have to relinquish something, and they will not want to relinquish.
You can only relinquish power if you have it and they have it. And
that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. They have it and they don't want to relinquish any of it, because I believe that if the people showed them, if they gave that market to the people could build that market. It could churn out money. It could be the pride, the jewel crown of Newham, but they won't do that because it will show failure in their own institution, and they are all afraid of it. That's why there's a mass sell-off of England, let alone the markets around London. It's a mass sell-off because nobody wants to be responsible for anything. I don't even know why we have councils, tell you the truth, because they are only just a management structure of our national government. But consultations, we've been through the consultation processes from the beginning. A lot of people don't have the opportunity. And we've seen how they manipulate questions. Like you say, throw sand in people's eyes. And what they do, they give a piece of 3-inch by 3-inch piece of paper to put their comment on there. When really, it will take you a whole A4 sheet and maybe more to put what your feelings really are.
As a matter of fact, I think that's where that's what it was. And they'll never do it again. But that was one of the better consultations because people were writing down what they thought, and it was going up on a board, and so other people could see what other people were saying. Now the council hates that. This is what the wonderful thing about digital. You put in, it's you and them. You write to them, they write to you. You don't know what the next guy is writing to them or what they're feeling.
Nor are you given an option that you want to make your comment public.
Yeah, but with this one, for some reason, I think they thought people probably wouldn't participate, but people were feeling strongly about the market, so they wrote down comments. Some of them very thoughtful, some of them very, very simple. No, we don't like these plans, and stuck them on the board. Now
that's pretty unequivocal, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. Yes. Now, presumably the council would have been them all, but friends of Queen's Market photographers, all took pictures of them, and people are much better at taking pictures with their cameras than me, and took close-ups of them. So we've got a lot of comments, and they reflect, to some quite often reflect the confusion that the council's engendered. But the overall message comes through. Don't demolish the market.
Yeah, I was saying you went to quite a few of them, didn't you? Really, and I think you followed all of them, didn't you?
What's that?
A professional consultant.
But normally you don't get that feedback that you do.
No.
This is why if you want consultation, to some extent, the traders' union are. And when they meet with different officials of the council, because the truth is the council is terrified of the traders. They're working on stereotypes, rough, tough market barrow boys. some of them have got the softest of hearts, you know. I mean, there's more free stuff given out there than in Tesco's or Waitrose.
But Pauline, but when you're talking about the traders union, that's one interest group. There are several interest groups.
There are.
And where are you? Where's Queen's Market in this kind of consultation? This is kind of, you know, let's be kind of cautious about celebrating one aspect of it, and then somehow kind of conceding in that conversation that you are excluded from this.
And the other shoppers who don't belong to.
We weren't always though.
But the thing is, when I checked the reports, you know, when I first started going into this consultation, started looking into it, it came out that we seem to be always on the negative side when it comes down to, if any report comes on, right, that Newham is the top of the league for poverty, or you know, Newham is this, new housing ban, homeless people. Landlord, you know, having to see something, whatever, you know, awarded to him for being the worst landlord, all the rest of it.
Well, the council's housing department has been condemned, hasn't it?
But it has. But the thing is, this was a government report. This is the government report, and they said that Newham was the worst and the highest consumers of consultations, and it was creating. And it was a barrister that said it was creating a form of infantile thinking, right? Because normally you would sort these out with your planners, your internal structure. To go outside, which means you're negating your responsibility. Does the council not have educated people to make the decisions?
We've had kind of, again, over the last 40 years, the use of kind of quangos and other kind of intermediate kind of bodies to stop ministers being directly responsible for the area that they are notionally responsible for. Yeah. You have this, and it dissipates all the way down, so we can always kind of subcontract a decision making and taking responsibility. And there comes a kind of a point where people say, no, this is enough.
Yeah.
And what you're getting is the disconnection with democratic politics.
Yeah.
It's no accident. This doesn't come out of the ether. This doesn't come out of a vacuum, right? This is the accumulation of being ignored, right, and being infantilized. It's kind of, you know, it's the parent-child relationship. And what we're trying to do is say, how do we kind of fix it? When you've broken the thing for so long, you can't simply, as a friend once said to me, you can turn an aquarium into fish soup, but you can't turn fish soup back into an aquarium. Well, it's going to be tough going.
Yeah.
Right? And remember, many of the services that we come to rely on are delivered at the local authority level, even though, right, only about 50% of your council tax goes towards the services that are offered by the local council.
Yeah.
Right? And the services have been falling because the national
Say
grant,
that again. Just explain that to me again. You said the 50%.
Only of the total services that are offered by the local authority.
Yeah.
Your council tax, the bill that comes through your door.
Yeah.
Right. That's posted through, only covers about 50% of the total expenditure of the council. The remainder comes through, on average, through a national grant. I think it's about 25, might be 26%, and the remainder is kind of business rates.
Yeah.
The bit that has been cut progressively since the financial crisis has been the national grant. Right? And that's had profound effects in the way that the council has responded. The council ain't great in telling you why this has been happening. And that's kind of its ultimate kind of failure, where they can't communicate with its residents and say, again, we want to give you the cultural life that you're entitled to. We don't want to close your libraries, but this is what's happened.
Yeah.
And we can have kind of poor consultation, we can have poor communication, but ultimately local authority services don't run on air.
Yep.
Right? And when there's been kind of cuts, and those cuts have been, again, national government, what they do is they subcontract it from the national to the local. And when you get kind of, let's be kind of clear, many of our local councillors aren't from the top of the tree, right? They aren't very representative. As I said, kind of only 1/3 of the electorate comes out to vote in a local authority. And what we're looking at is kind of the calibre that you've got as well, and also the communication. If you went round to your ward, Sam, how many of the residents of your wall end, how many of the residents of Wall End know who the local councillors are?
Very few.
Likewise, Pauline.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, very few indeed.
Because my Wall End seems to be the back end of Newham. It seemed maybe Manhawkins, but the thing is, they just use my area as a stepping stone, and all I've got in waiting retirees that are hanging on in there by their fingernails. Really, that should have been retired about 30 years ago.
Can I just pick up on an earlier point that you made about kind of Newham at the top of the league of poverty, etc.
Yeah.
These things are not unique to Newham, but they are more pronounced in Newham.
Yeah.
Right. Poverty and inequality exists throughout society.
It does.
But it's more pronounced in Newham.
Yeah.
And when it comes to kind of local kind of taxes, we no longer talk about inequality as though it's, we can't talk about that. Right? And we don't look at kind of how the pendulum of power has swung from those who do the work to those who have the capital. Right? This isn't kind of them and us, because many of our savings and kind of pension funds are often into those kind of funds.
Yeah.
But we're looking at the pendulum of power, and part of that kind of discussion and the solution to how can we have proper.
But how does that pendulum swim back to us?
Well, I mean, one way of doing it.
Get rid of useless councillors.
I don't know if this builds on that. I'm really glad Sukhdep mentioned councillors. Look, as regards councillors, they are supposed to be our open door for our democratic concerns.
Absolutely.
Now, if you speak to your councillor, if they raise an issue, the chances are your councillor will effectively heave a sigh, oh God, another person knocking on my door with a query, if they're one of the established councillors. But if they do think your query is worth taking it up, they have to ask the council. I think there's a special, they can't go direct to the departments now. They have to go through the gate. There's a special section that deals with councillor queries, and then the answer comes back to them. So there's gatekeeping.
I was told it's like a funneling thing that goes, and it funnels. I think that's where there's a blockage in there.
Yeah. So what we would want surely
sounds like constipation, mate.
Well, that's what the council is. It's constipated.
To enhance a vibrant democracy, you'd want a council that would say, "Great, we've got a councillor query here."
Okay.
Now, there is a certain.
We're gonna
eat more fruit and veg. Sort the constipation out.
We're gonna change this topic. Sorry, I could keep this going.
Let's not become a kind of a cycle of kind of just bashing the local council, because there are certain things that they do well.
Exactly. I don't want to. You have to find a do well business part of it.
Well, when you do, let me know.
Yeah, I will do. I'll take pictures. We've been told many times. Right now, the biggest demand we need, the biggest pressures we've got is housing. How do we deal with it, Stan? How do we deal with it, Paulie? How do we answer this question that market is not the solution for Newham's housing crisis? How do people start waking up to the fact that these high-rise developments that are plaguing this country, especially our borough, because we're the last little segment left of this mass.
We need proper council housing like the councils, governments used to build. Council housing for rent. Rents that people can afford that don't leave them in poverty.
But the thing is that building over, the proposed building that the thing they're going to do over Queen's Market, that will provide housing. That's what we've been told.
Well, we know.
We were told the Olympics were going to provide council housing.
Exactly.
What did we get? Nothing.
Look, it was. I think it was an Eliot poem where he said that kind of the drug of dreams and the pain of living, right? You're offered the drug of dreams that somehow kind of, we're going to fix the housing problem, and Queen's Market is going to be a major part of that solution.
That's going to sort. That's going to sort.
Well, look, let me start with the kind of question.
Look at what they've done before. Rathbone Market. Yeah. East Ham Market went. Did we get any council housing? No.
But the cynicism comes through kind of evidence to support that the drug of dreams has resulted in a poor outcome. Right?
Yeah, it's a hangover.
And when this kind of, sold this kind of notion of there'll always be a Queen's Market as though it will be enhanced, right? We have to go by the promise. Well, let's go back to the promise. You said Rathbone Market, East Ham Market.
East Ham Market.
Let's keep going till we find one that actually has one of those kind of great outcomes that we were told about.
Let's keep going, because
I was going to have a silence there.
Yes, it's like looking out from those glasses, that sort of tunnel vision.
The rose-tinted glasses.
This is a fallacy that this is solving housing issues.
Look, how long has Newham had a housing crisis?
Forever.
I mean, I'm 62 now, and
especially
I've
from the
been hearing
Thatcher
about
time,
this.
it's all went on steroids from the Thatcher era. But the thing is, we are not moving any closer to solving.
Listen, how can we be? One of the kind of questions that are never asked is, how can we be the most wealthiest country, and much of that wealth built on housing, and yet we have a housing crisis? I mean, it seems like a bizarre kind of situation. How have we got into this? We've got into this simply because the pendulum of power swung from those people who had kind of disjointed employment profiles and kind of disjointed kind of lives, and also social housing. We can put it on market rents, and how then our housing benefit has ballooned, which is essentially a subsidy for landlords. Right. That's what it is. There's a book it's called kind of Corporate Welfare Bums. I remember reading it. I think it was 1976. It was published, and it was kind of eye-opening of kind of all the kind of the privileges that are given to business. But let's come back to kind of how are we going to fix the housing problem? It's going to have to require imagination, and it's going to have to take invested interests on.
But what I'm hearing and reading, that's the thing about doing a radio thing. It opens up to so much information. It's actually overwhelming. I'm hearing about people with children that can't afford rent, that are leaving London. They don't have to be moved out by the council. They're leaving voluntarily.
People are,
Right, listen, we're going to
what happens when you make a city unlivable? That's what happens.
We are going to have to close this up. We're going to carry this on. This was fantastic.
May I say something?
Quickly. Very quickly.
I just see with housing, I see two jobs for us. One, to say at the present, the way housing goes, we don't want housing on Queen's Market because it won't be for people on the housing list. In the future, we've got to do whatever we can to get governments and councils to build homes at social rent for the people on the housing list.
Yep, we're going to carry this on again. I think we're going to come back in and carry this on. Right, okay. Thank you to all the listeners who have actually engaged with us. I hope you got something out of it, because it's an up and down sort of thing for me. And viewers across our social media, remember to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube page, Revive FM 94.0, Facebook. And have a great time wherever you are, and may your gods go with you. And keep it locked on Revive FM 94.0. Until the next time, please engage. Take care now. Bye-bye.
पानी के बगैर जिंदगी का तसव्वुर नामुमकिन है। दुनिया भर में तकरीबन 2 अरब से ज्यादा लोग ऐसे हैं